Hello and welcome to the program. I am Suren. How can one be objective when speaking of the usage of psychokinesis? I know that even Adrian Clarke, the scientist, has attempted to be professionally objective when speaking of the usage of psychokinesis. Personally, I do not think that the thoughts and the subjects we have so far spoken of in regards to psychokinesis is purely speculation or even imagination. In proper scientific way of thinking, it is vital to give it at least 50-50 chance for things theorized or believed in, because the subject matter needs a degree of validity to justify to pass them on to the observer. Remember that the universal mind or intelligence energy is constantly in touch with people, and millions continue to receive some information from this source, and the facts are used up before the imagination begins. The collective concepts of our universe will become closer to the truth. There are currently many inaccuracies in our concept of the universe, wherein our current knowledge is lacking to allow us to understand the messages we receive from the energy intelligence. It is possible that the universal knowledge is available to every human being all the time on the universal transmission of this wealth of information that we may be able to use, let alone understand, with our lacking intelligence, which is currently very limited. Here is a question. What kind of natural laws govern the psychic world, would you say? Controlling how we can use the powers therein? That is a very good question. They really are unknown at the moment. As we humans learn more about the natural psychic laws, we will surely be able to more freely perform fantastic feats of psychokinesis. The whole cosmos is very impressive indeed, because it is vast and beyond the reach of our technologies, and even out of our imaginations. Our current technological prowess universe has been observed to extend billions of light years in all directions, is estimated to be over 11 billion years old, whereas the planet Earth is only 4 and 7 million years old. Remember that the universe is populated with billions of other planets, and with many of these are older than the planet Earth by billions of years. Universe has certainly many mysterious supernovas, pulsars, quasars, and many other galaxies. Yet from the cosmological viewpoint, there seems to be no proof of life beyond the Earth, unless there is some minute amount of discovery in meteors which shows the basic building blocks of life. Amino acids constituting the proof of existence of life in the universe. And also, let us not forget the existence of UAPs or UFOs. Like scientist Clarke also mentions, that in mythology, history, and even the Bible, they give many accounts of beings on the earth who were believed to be non-human by ancient scribes and writers. They specifically spoke of visitors like gods, angels, sons of men, sons of gods, and unusual-looking people. In addition to this, even the Bible, being considered as a reliable book by millions of people, many ancient accounts are given of strange visitors from outside this planet we occupied for a very long time. And they have been mentioned of superior beings who have reached their extremely intellectual level in the same way that we humans may reach to their level of being one day. I wish I could tell you which day. We can, of course, assume that superior extraterrestrial beings have been around the planet Earth for thousands of years. Their presence accounts for the many stories of the unusual clouds which carry a god and angels. These people or beings would also account for certain UFO visitations, the chariots of fire, for instance, Ezekiel's visitors, and us. These beings seem to have a transportation system which they readily utilize, and they may be living in those vehicles in space as we live in our homes. They may even have been working with life on Earth for billions of years. Healthy, advanced life. Extraterrestrial beings are always mentioned in the Bible, like, for example, in regards to Eden in the days of Noah, like the sons of God, Abraham and Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah, angels and men, and when Jesus ascended to men in white ascending with him, and in other stories we discover some superior happenings. These superior beings and their behavior have given us another bit of data to use in arriving at a certain concept of the universe that is not at all empty, but populated by intelligences other than us, the humans. What about communication by telepathy? In these scriptural stories, we discover communication with extraterrestrial beings, both audible and telepathically. Since the early 1930s, reliable research by a Dr. Ryan at the Duke University and several other research institutions has verified that human beings have a sixth sense, which may be the sense for communicating with superior beings. We're not sure. Although communication by telepathy is very common, but as human beings, we don't think of it as communication, but perhaps mysteriously knowing the facts which are not received through our five senses. Do you have dreams? Many people have dreams, and dreams which came true. Many people have hunches, which are right, recognizing places that we haven't been in before. Then a few specifically gifted people, such as you may have heard, Jean Dixon, who seem to have many correct prophecies. There are many other unusual people, as we made mention of before, such as Ted Serios, who could impose mental images on photographic film. Research with plants performed by Cleve Baxter indicates that all life and normal life, or response to, as if it is part of higher living systems, senses, and receives signals to all. Where do we have an extrasensory perception, as in the past, and lost it, or still developing it, is unknown. But the evidence indicates that man once had better ESP, and he is slowly regaining what he has lost. Again, in scientist Clark's words, during some evolutionary developmental stage, man was given the ability to communicate with his sixth sense much better than he does today. But he apparently lost much of this talent due to not using it. Probably he became a little too practical. There are many stories also in the Bible which seem to bear this out, but most convincing one is the story of Jesus, an extraterrestrial being who apparently had excellent ESP communication skills with the universal life. Now the teachings of him seems to be outlined a method for humans to use in improving contact with superior intelligent beings. This method has as a prerequisite to developing communications a requirement for the awareness of superior beings. If we are aware of superior beings, we want to communicate with them. We may be reluctant to contact them, or because of all we do is the fear of their power. Such as, what if he became angry at me for some reason? He could eliminate me with a thought. We may realize that the superior being can be displayed with many of our, displeased with many of our childish actions. And we would not be willing to contact him unless we know that he loves us in spite of our behaviors. This method, which is described for developing contact with energy intelligence, contains proof of his or her love because he or she loved us enough and sent his begotten Son to die to wipe off the sins of the earthmen. Just think about it. If it is realized that the magnitude of this person's interest in us, our fears disappeared, and we want to communicate with this higher intelligence of the universe. The method taught by Christ can now become effective because we shall try to ask the higher intelligence some questions and expect to receive answers. Communication with a higher intelligence is not as easy as talking to one's own peer. But our efforts to communicate can be rewarded with improved understanding. The contacts could be the result in ESP ability, similar to what Jeannie Nixon was. Yet we might have been better with our results, and we may have learned what is required of us to perform a useful service to mankind. Improving our contact can only result in greater power. However, as it is always the case, with greater power goes the responsibility of greater controls. The method thought by Jesus for improving communication with the universal mind is one requiring improved moral controls to gain increasing powers. This method requires concern and interest in others. Complete contact with the universal mind may cause a person to behave as if he is part of the universal mind. It's the point to ponder. This word places him in an unacceptable position among people who could not understand his behaviors. And this person might be excluded from society by any means considered necessary by the so-called social design. Even though very few people, maybe only Jesus, have had complete contact. Even these with superior contact have been considered as social outcasts, and they have even been, you guessed it, murdered. Superior beings are supervising the earth people and riding in the clouds with the vehicles we know as UAPs or UFOs. They may not be able to live amongst humans because humans would endanger their existence. Superior beings may soon find among humans an environment acceptable for their existence so that they can live with human beings. If humans would continue to improve their psychic abilities, including, you guessed it, psychokinesis. The nature of universal life. In the book titled Cosmic Mysteries of the Universe, Adrian Clarke, the scientist, mentions that superior beings may be overseeing the planets where new life might be developing. Planets may be seeded with life by a universal life system. The superior life may use natural laws which can move objects by thought. And they may exist in a zero-dimensional universe. In our physical universe, that is, mass is being converted into knowledge by human type of beings. I would like to recommend you to read The Unobstructed Universe by E.P. Dutton of New York of 1940. That is, if you can find the book. Indeed, objects may be moved by thought, utilizing psychic signal, triggering the directional release of photons from matter, as photons leave an atom in one direction only. The object containing the atom will move in the opposite direction, or the object can receive a greater force from its environment, such as air, by directing the atoms in the object against air molecules so that each atom strikes the air molecules in a direction to lift the object. There may be considerable evidence to support this proposal that a natural law exists in the movement of matter by thought. There may be another smaller universal cycle through to Earth and life and our proceeding. And the cycle has no start and no end. But for a discussion to start, we can begin with superior thinking beings who produced the light in the form of electromagnetic radiation. Even human beings produce light in the form of brain waves when thinking. Light in the universe may be going through processes which form hydrogen, the simplest atom, and which is the most plentiful in the universe. Hydrogen condenses into stars which produce heavier elements and planets on which life can exist, as with planet Earth. Planets may be seeded with life, which is developed to higher and higher levels until it converts mass into knowledge. When we learn, we use energy from food to produce knowledge, which may become a part of the universal storehouse of knowledge. Now Clark further explains, higher life on the planet will finally communicate successfully with universal life and will become a part of the universal life and will no longer be dependent upon a planet for its existence. The home planet or solar system will burn out and die, but these beings will continue to exist in the unobstructed universe or at some location in the physical universe or elsewhere. We have no idea. Universal life exists in universal cloud habitats. Think producing light, which also continues the cycle in the universe. This concept of the universe is based upon facts and imagination. But what is the source of imagination? A good question. Mankind may be on the verge of contact with universal life, which, when accomplished, will greatly improve humans' mode of existence and happiness. The primary obstacle to improve contact is lack of consideration for humans' fellow man. When the first astronauts were making their final preparations for the trip around the moon in December 1968, some people claimed to be communicating with higher intelligence, as predicted, that the astronauts would be able to communicate much better, maybe faster, with higher life while they were outside the Earth environment. My family and my wife, however, who was heavily involved with Jehovah's Witnesses, were condemning the whole movement of landing a man on the moon and considering it all demonic and evil. But the first moon visitors certainly expressed concepts indicative of recognizing, if not communicating, with superior beings, not evil ones. The astronauts certainly acknowledged the creator of Earth and the moon during their Christmas season voyage. That was in 1968. Some people were in contact with superintelligence, were proposing that the space program was part of a master plan being carried out by the superior universal intelligence and not the devil, as Jehovah's Witnesses have liberally claimed. The unobstructed universe. That is a very intriguing subject. Probably completely intermingled with the physical universe, maybe the psychic or even an obstructed universe, seemingly necessary to explain what really ESP or PK, God, angels, UFOs, and many other things within which are observed in the physical universe. Maybe the unobstructed universe is the place with spirited beings who have passed into that realm from the physical universe. According to, it is being proceeded from a physical to the spiritual. It goes, this is Dr. Clark, from a point source as our body, we are at one place in the universe, possibly through a distribution throughout the spirit universe. He says, when they depart this physical world, he may go to the spirit universe as a system which is everywhere in the spirit universe. It is probably more likely it does not go from the physical to the spiritual universe, but that the soul is in the spirit and physical universe all the time. When the physical body dies, the soul loses its strong contact with the physical world, which the soul has because of the body is five senses, and the soul can then experience more easily the spirit universe. The spirit and the soul is part of all spiritual beings. All the soul communication place with all spirit beings the way one part of our brain communicates with the other part. Each have an identity, even more than part of one's brain, as a personal identity. So seems to continue a learning process the same way that most of our physical lives are devoted to learning process. It seems that many times the primary reason for physical death is because he is no longer learning as much as he is capable of learning. And with the death, he goes into the spirit, around where he can continue to learn. Even in the spirit universe, there are indications that some spirits are extremely slow learners. These thoughts about the spirit world have obtained primarily from people who have had contact with disconnected to be. The thoughts have also been formulated from the evidence in the physical world gained from studies and scientific fields, and an imagination which binds together the parts and pieces as the universal mind, perhaps, were guiding us to an explanation of the unexplained as explained. You also mentioned that in Huntsville, Alabama, engineers and scientists worked in the aerospace industry and upon military weapons were investigating psychic phenomena. I'm quoting from Dr. Clarke's words. They were aware that very unusual things were happening, which have no explanation in science. Therefore, assuming that the scientific explanation is possible, and search for the answers. Warren York, aerospace laboratory scientist in Huntsville, Alabama, investigated many areas in psychic issues using sensitive electronic equipment and also hypnosis. He used hypnosis to help a lady who was bothered by a spirit identity possessing her mind. After hypnotizing the woman, she said she could see a glow around electrical appliances, whether they were on or off. But when they were unplugged, she saw no glow. When a magnet was placed near the appliance, she no longer saw any glow at all. She could see objects everywhere in the room, regardless of their location. With a large book between her and an object, she could really describe the object. She said she saw all around her in our knowing fashion and direct vision with her eyes. She never blinked her eyes during the half hour she was hypnotized. After the initial investigation, York came to the real reason for advertising her by asking that possessing spirit identify himself. The spirit said he was William. When William took control of the lady, she became colder to touch, and her voice and characteristics changed, as if she were another person. She seemed to have difficulty expressing what William wanted to say. When York asked William when he lived and where, although the information was sketchy, York understood that he left long time ago in a grass hut during the time of dinosaurs, with all people of the time were like the Egyptians. York then took a normal approach to ask William questions. William wanted to know what the thing's electric switches were that is on the wall. York tried to explain that they did by relating electricity to water following in a stream. Then he wanted to know why there were people with different skin colors, since he had known of only one color when he lived. He also was interested in why we were going to the moon, since he had been there and found nothing on it. Answering his questions and then asking him if there were other spirits with him, William said he was completely alone. York told him that other spirits were around, possibly in other planes, and William could not wait until he contacted them by willing himself to be with them. And so he brought the lady out from places, and several days later she was told by William that he had found other spirits and would no longer come to her. Your research seems fantastic coming from the space capital of the universe, where the moon vehicles originated. But more and more scientists are convinced that the psychic crown should be investigated and understood. Apparently, the discarnate spirit, William, had spent thousands of years in the spirit world before he made contact with other spirits. He probably had a low sense of awareness in the psychic world, and therefore was unaware of any beings in the spirit world until York suggested that he tried to contact other beings. Unanswered natural universal laws. That's an interesting subject. The same way religionists assume that God or an intelligence is everywhere, the same throughout the universe. The scientist assumes that the natural laws are the same throughout the entire physical universe. The scientist has been able to observe natural laws at the greatest distances through telescopes. He has found natural laws are the same billions of light years away as they are on Earth. The law of gravity has been observed at great distances in the motion of stars and galaxies. This is the same in those distant stars as it is in our solar system. Since it is the same, there must be some connection between this part of the universe and another. We know of no connection that causes natural laws to be the same everywhere, but we will assume that the connection is in the psychic universe. Assuming that superintelligent beings are the cause of the natural laws, physical material and order which we observe in the universe, he would need some instantaneous signal to contact various parts of this vast estate. He, the greater intelligence, would require such communication based upon how the Earth's communication has been developed by us humans to keep the society functioning. He would use the psychic signal to contact ourselves, us, anywhere in the universe. But we are the beings who were not present, and he probably wishes to shift the location of our planet to produce a new sun or more matter for any reason that he may be knowledgeable of, and you would leave a method for our moving objects. What could it be? He would need something like psychokinesis to move planets where intelligent beings were not available, to move those planets with nuclear power or other propulsive forces. Intelligence may use PK as the natural method of moving objects when other natural forces are not available for the job. Universal mind, assuming he controls the universe, must have either an instantaneous signal to anywhere, or he must be located throughout the universe, which may be exactly the same, since the end result would be just the same. What would this mean to us as part of the universal mind? Well, we should have the ability to move objects with our minds when we communicate on the psychic channel. We should develop the ability to go anywhere using levitations, teleportation. We may have to develop this ability primarily as a group or society rather than individually, since most of our technological progress have been by group effort as human beings. There are isolated cases of people who move objects with their minds, but these are random, non-consistent occurrences which are not predictable or reliable. If we shall collectively work on developing PK after understanding what it is, we shall have a fantastically useful service to mankind and other beings of our universe. This is a long-range program, but there may be isolated cases which proves that PK will work for us. Bodily ascension. Here comes a few predictions of what can happen if we apply PK. First of all, we do not necessarily die at physical death. We can cure illnesses, physical damage to our bodies, and we can stop the aging process. When our work is completed on Earth, we can then proceed to our next assignment with our physical bodies intact, while communicating with all intelligent beings in the universe. We can leave the earth in the same manner like Elijah, Moses, Jesus, and many others have done when departing. Fantastic, but possible, according to Jesus, who said that we could do even greater things like he did. If we can prevent aging, why would we want to leave the planet Earth? We may want to leave the both negatives and positive reasons. One negative reason for leaving is that we would not fit into the Earth's social system if we had psychic powers, like Jesus did. We would be out of place with people because our relatives and others who are our lifetime friends would be dying. We would not fit into the legal systems for owning property, social security, and other items associated with older people. We would not fit into the family system of being a grandparent, great-grandparent, great-great-grandparent, because our descendants would not know what to do with us or how to explain such an unusual old fogey who just would not die. On the positive side of reasons for leaving the Earth, we would probably like to see other places and beings in the universe. We may want to go to where all our relatives are and visit with them. Our strongest motivation for moving on may be the desire to learn more about the physical and the psychic universe. If we use PK and other psychic powers in this life, we can be an oddity who may even become unwelcome in society, as was so vividly demonstrated in the life of Christ. We would either have to be very cautious in how and when we exercised our psychic power, or accept a position in society as an outsider, perhaps an oddball, as they say, or a showpiece. When we decide to leave Earth, if we have mastered the ascension, we can rise through the air into a vehicle waiting to take us to our next assignment in the universe. Or we can leave our bodies behind and passing to the spiritual universe, where we shall be everywhere at will. We can rematerialize our bodies at another location in the universe, where we are assigned to continue our education. There is also the possibility that future responsibility may require that we be born again as a child to work among some primitive planet in the universe. Anthony Brooke, writing in Faith magazine, reported that Annalise Garin mysteriously disappeared from Salt Lake City, Utah, on June 1952. The circumstances surrounding her translating or ascension indicate that she had reached an ultimate in psychokinetic control of her physical body. At one time, a member of the Mormon Church wrote in a book, "You are God's." This led to much conflict with the leaders of the church, who claimed that she was setting herself up as a prophetess, a position which was only reserved for the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Dispute finally resulted in Mrs. Skarin being excommunicated. Mrs. Skarin said, "All I am trying to do is to teach mankind that it is possible for every child of God to be so in tune with Him and His Holy Spirit that they can be directed in all that they do, in all that they say, and that their lives can become a melody of living glory as they learn to abide completely and fully in His Holy Spirit. It is such a breathtaking glory that every moment of every day that is almost unspeakable power." The alleged translation took place in the home of an elderly couple in June 1952. Neither of these people feel that they have any reason to doubt the reality of the translation. They simply and readily accepted it as a fact. On the eventful morning of June 16, 1952, Mrs. Skarin hinted to her friend that she had been told the previous night that the angels might be coming for her soon. As a result, she gave orders that if this should happen, her daughter to be sent all her books and other personal effects. The early hours of June 17, Mrs. Scott's friend awakened and suddenly, and felt compelled to go to Mrs. Scarron's room, she was gone. Nothing in the way of clothes or other belongings seemed to be missing. Even her dentures were laying on a bedside table. There was, however, a strange, light aroma that filled not only the room, but the entire house. This friend assumed that this aroma was that what had awakened her so suddenly. Late that evening, this friend and her grown son and 2 daughters, seated in the living room. Mrs. Scarron entered the house. She was wearing a plain blue dress. Her hair was disheveled, and her legs were dusty. Mrs. Scarron asked, "Do you believe I have translated?" Windows were assembled there that they did. Scarron praised God for their faith and asked his blessing upon them. Immediately, her appearance changed into a shining being, clothed in white leather raiment. Her hair shone with a golden light. One note of interest was the shining new teeth, which was displayed, even though her dentures were laying on her bedside table upstairs. Anna Lee blessed them as she slowly disappeared from their sight. Stated in her writing that man has embryonic divinity within himself. Every minute, every minute brain cell of man can become spiritualized and controlled by his mind. Further, she held that the experience of translation was not just for the few. It is intended for all. Yet, she insisted, we should not have our minds fixed on translation only, but on unseen prayer, praise, and thanksgiving to God, which, if intensified, and one is intensely engaged, could lead to this result. Apparently, Anna had followed techniques established by universal energy intelligence, which to her provided such a close contact with him that she could have unlimited power, even to psychokinetically changing her body and transforming it into the psychic universe. Appearance of shining here that shone with a golden light indicated that her body was being converted into the materials around her, i.e. air, dust, etc. And the physical and psychical signal which performed this cycle, kinetic feet, was releasing the light. Then she disappeared because her physical body had been transmuted. But Anna was in the psychic universe anyway. She has translated from a point in the physical universe to being spread everywhere in the psychic universe. Then she could again be born on another planet. Overseers of other planets. This rebirth would not be considered a reincarnation, but a continuation of our spiritual selves in the psychic universe while a body develops in a normal biological manner on the assigned planet. The rebirth would be the linking up of the new physical brain with the spiritual soul in the unobstructed universe. We would be living in the physical universe with a communication ability to the psychic universe. This complete being would be one like Jesus. It is also possible that no rebirth would be required. As we work on a planet within the universe to help life develop from simple microorganisms to Homo sapien type of beings. Whether we already have or produced a physical body or not, using PK or existing only in the psychic universe seems unimportant for an overseer's job. Until we make direct contact with beings at the Homo sapiens level. We would need a physical body, which looked like the natives' bodies, so they would not be frightened. Then we could talk to them face to face, educating and encouraging them to develop their sixth sense for better communication with us. The dwellers of our planet may think of us as angels or gods, which we would be to them. But we would think of the natives as our children, because we would have used PK to produce the changes in one species of life so that a new species can be evolved. Unintelligent life was at a level which would support a Homo sapiens level, which level would be the subhuman level, which is known to have existed thousands of years before God created Adam, so to say. The natives and our children would be our primary joy and sorrow when they were at that level, because they would communicate only slightly with us and would often make very serious mistakes, causing wars, sicknesses, and much distress for themselves and us, because we loved them as we do now. We, as obviously us and parents, would have the responsibility of protecting our children as required, continuing to develop their awareness that our higher intelligence and is available to help them. We would primarily be responsible for teaching our children the universal concept of love, which is vital before they could communicate in the psychic world and have the tremendous powers available to them. Love is a concern for the welfare of others. Love is a feeling we have toward one another, which is like the feeling we have for ourselves. Love is our desire for the happiness of other persons. Love is essential to our existence in psychic universe and use of its powers, because in the obstructed universe we are one with all spiritual beings, working together for common goals. As spirit beings, we must lose ourselves, or we should use psychic powers to eliminate parts of ourselves which would cause sorrow to ourselves. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver my body to be burnt, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things. Love never ends. And for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For our knowledge is imperfect, and our prophecy is imperfect. But when the perfect comes, the imperfect will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall understand fully, even as I have been fully understood. So faith, hope, love abide, these three. But the greatest of these is love. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Probably the best way of teaching our children and our planet the true nature of love and how to live in the spirit realm is for us to live among our children for a while, practicing complete love as we have learned from our education in the obstructed universe. This was used by Jesus on earth 2,000 years ago. It is difficult for the majority of people today to understand the Jesus love. And it is much more difficult to practice it, because we have not developed a sufficiently good psychic communication link with Jesus to be aware continually of the best way to treat our fellow men. It seems that the primary and ultimate goal of the existence of the universal intelligence is to preserve intelligent beings in the universe. And to preserve intelligence, it may be necessary for additional knowledge to be obtained of how to stay alive or exist through some great way or catastrophe, which may be coming as a natural function of the universe. This great catastrophe could be the collapse of the physical universe into one tremendous fireball of primary radiation particles, which destroys all physical material except energy, and may destroy the identity of certain spirit beings. If this were the case, the universal intelligence may be working on a plan to preserve himself. Purpose of biological life on new planets. New ideas must be needed to reserve universal life and the purpose of being, like humans, and new planets may be to develop and new technologies for solving problems. Our purpose need to be for existing with very little influence and help from the energy intelligence, which could be to allow freedom for the original thought, techniques and strategies for solving problems on Earth can then be applied to solving bigger problems in the physical universe. One other purpose that one can think of for biological life may be to convert matter into knowledge in the spirit universe, which can be recycled back into matter in the physical world, continuing the cycle of life as long as the physical universe exists. Human beings consume food and converting some of the food directly into knowledge stored in the unobstructed universe. The human being acts his knowledge in his brain, but he also produces an electromagnetic signal, or the light, which seems to be the link into the unobstructed universe. His knowledge becomes a part of the universal storage of knowledge. This can be used to solve universal problems or can be recycled into the physical universe to produce more matter. The cycle is the changing of matter into chemical energy in the body of a human, the energy producing knowledge, the knowledge assuming the psychic role where it is the unknown psychic material, the psychic material being converted back into light in the physical world, the light changing back into matter, pair production of an electron and opposite the primary matter particles combining to form elements in stars. The stars producing planets where molecules are built up until some are complicated enough to be alive. Then continued involvement to higher forms of life with the help of universal life until the human level is reached, where we can convert matter into knowledge in the psychic realm, completing the universal cycle, with biological life being the vital link in the cycle. This cycle is to be on as the entire physical universe goes through its expansion and contraction, fireball and expansion cycle. Many physical universe cycles may have occurred before any type of intelligence was able to exist through the fireball phase. However, this may be the first cycle for intelligence. You know, the big project ahead of the universal energy intelligence may to maintain complete identity, not be destroyed as an intelligent being when the physical universe becomes a plasma of energy and primary basic subnuclear particles. With such a tremendous vital goal in mind. We, as overseers of new biological life support of planets, would try to utilize any ideas or methods originating from the natives on the planets to devise methods for maintaining our identity through the universal fireball holocaust. Scientist Clark continues to say, one possible way to prevent such a holocaust and maintaining identity may be using PK to push the stars and galaxies apart, preventing collisions as the entire physical universe tries to converge at one point. This method may require a tremendous universal army of highly skilled PK controllers with immeasurable years of experience in using PK throughout the vastness of the universe. To prevent such a holocaust may be the ultimate in PK usage, but such a concept is only a mental entertainment for those of us who have moved nothing with our minds, linked up to the energy intelligence. At this time, we need to make an objective, critical analysis of ourselves. Therefore, let us ask ourselves the questions. Do I want to have PK powers? Am I convinced that such natural laws exist which will allow me to move objects with just thoughts? What actual attempts have I made to move even one object? What success have I had? Did I not at least receive some message when I attempted to move the object? I have tried PK for some worthwhile purpose, such as healing a sick person or moving a serious ill person to the hospital. We should watch locations when there is a real need for PK, then try to exercise it. Using PK is a powerful force to make people happy. Scientist says that in his field of science and engineering, there are many well-informed engineers and scientists who would not entertain the possibility with the unusual stories told could be the result of natural laws not as yet understood. These people may have closed their minds, but there are also many professionals who have open minds and feel that many unusual occurrences are really events which have a natural explanation. Some of the more open-minded scientists are so convinced that psychic phenomena are natural that they are investigating those phenomena, while a few are actually trying to use psychic powers to communicate with the universal intelligence to learn more about the science of the occult. He says in his field of science, he's making progress in the understanding and use of spirit forces from the unobstructed universe. But ask the question, have I missed the control of psychic forces to move this pencil to write this account or that program instead of moving the pencil with my mind? Those more, then more people are aware of the psychic universe and the forces available therein. We shall have more and more success in psychic controls. We may have to work together, as we do in many big projects, to gain effective use of PK and other spiritual powers. We can indeed improve our sixth sense if we are convinced that we have a sixth sense, which can communicate with the universal energy, intelligence. We shall find that all attempts to communicate with him over rewarded by a response from him. In each opportunity that we have to help another person, as we express love by assisting or aiding him, we help our sixth sense develop. To become greatest in the psychic universe is to be one who is a servant of others. We cannot express love to another unless we perform physical services. We cannot express to another unless we perform personal contact. To say that we love a person but will not associate with him is paradoxical. Those we love, we are with and helping, that's it. As our love grows, our service to others grows. In our ability to control PK and other psychic forces will increase. Let us imagine that we are living in a world where there are no discriminations, no enmity, no opposition to each other, and there is complete respect and acceptance to one another amongst the people they are in with. What kind of world we would be living in? Question. If all people are united in educating one another, thus helping this civilization to grow to its highest form, as we know of other planetary systems, wherein other civilizations indeed have gone through exactly the same situations, but at the end to a conclusion that all that history was nothing more than emptiness. And it did not take them into heights, uniting in assisting the world they lived in into a better state. Could this ever happen on planet Earth? I personally believe that it can, because humans, no matter at what stage of development in their evolutionary pathway, are capable of living in peace, concentrating only on a better, healthier, and unselfish ways of living, when all their scientific progress would be accordingly well established and coordinated, making their lives happier and easier. I have been told by several other people, including some of my friends, that if the world would be living in this ideal state, the whole life would become very boring indeed. No, I do not think that the world would need to experience boredom, but advancement. They would be so advanced to be able to go from here to other planetary systems, creating more human societies living in peace and indeed doing loving deeds. Scientifically and socially, that is when they are going to become more capable to utilize their powers, which they have gained throughout the centuries, and utilizing PK and helping the world they are in become a better place. If they would only concentrate on helping one another instead of fighting and destroying one another and creating more weapons to do just that, and at the same time destroying a beautiful planet given to them as a gift of life, but caring and assisting it to become a better place, sustaining life that would have a better future and a step towards the highest form of living, when the various achievements between the physical, astral, and spiritual existence would be not even considered any longer, for all would be at peace and all would be perfected. Perfect life and a perfect planet. That was what had been envisaged and will be, hopefully, within a lifetime, and not in many other lifetimes later on planet Earth. This should be the aim of humanity. You might call me an idealist if you like, which I am. However, I shall leave this program for the moment until we meet again by the next episode. Until then, keep smiling and be happy. Thank you.